Okay.
I like to start the record the minute you come on the screen
Great.
because I don't like to be left out of anything, which probably we could talk about today with all of your beautiful detachment work. But
Oh no, no.
everybody to miss a
I have a
minute.
lot of attachments. Don't worry about that.
Oh, good. Wait, I want to tell you, I had to write this down because I was watching your YouTube's video and my friend
Uh-huh.
was here. She said, wow, I can feel this guy's energy through his videos. He instantly makes me feel safe.
That's a really big compliment, actually.
Isn't
That's
that,
really
she's right. I was like, that's
that's really
really
sweet.
true. What are you drinking?
Oh,
Tea?
just a little green tea. I've been sick the last 5 days, and I think only today is the first day I'm feeling a bit better. So I'm hoping today I don't sound completely stupid on your podcast.
I mean, I think that would be really hard for you
I
to
don't know
sound
about
really
that.
stupid. Well, welcome. Welcome to what you're craving. We have a lot of questions. A lot of
Oh,
the
what's
breadth
happening?
of your work, I think, is
Oh, yeah.
in craving. So I
Is
think
my
you might
video
be the
coming
person who
through?
can answer the question, what we're craving, but tell us a little bit about you. Tell us how you became a person whose energy instantly makes us feel safe and calm through a YouTube lens. No big deal.
Well, I think it's been almost a lifetime of work. I don't think I by any means was born that way.
Yeah.
I
Usually us spiritual people were not, we had to get there, right?
we did, yeah. And my background started or my history really began in Sri Lanka, which is where I was born. And I was born into a Buddhist family. Um, we lived right by a temple, and so from a very young age, I was exposed to Buddhism, spirituality, meditation a little less at that point because specifically in Sri Lanka and a lot of Southeast Asian countries, there's more of an emphasis on the religion as opposed to the practice. And so my spiritual journey really began in my mid 20s when a panic attack one day at work in my corporate job really really turned my life upside down. I up until that point was a fairly successful young man. I thought I was pretty fit and healthy, had a big group of friends, big social life. Um, but I was operating under a baseline level of anxiety for a long period of time,
Mm.
and that manifested in a sleep disorder and high stress, and especially working in the advertising and marketing world.
Oh
It
yeah.
really yeah, it sounds like it really
Well,
took
that's like
a
a
toll on me.
pace,
And
that's like a not enoughness and pace and not enoughness and pace
yeah,
and more. It's like miracle grow for anxiety.
yeah, exactly right. And so from this moment of having the panic attack, I searched for ways to get well because I was out of work for about 18 months because it really did a number on me, and
So was
my
that
mother was looking
the
after.
panic attack? Was that derailing how did you decide to leave work?
Um, it wasn't actually a choice at that point. Like I just couldn't, I couldn't work. Back then, 15, 16 years ago, we didn't talk about mental health like we do now. We didn't talk about anxiety like we do now.
Mm.
I didn't know what any of these things were. And I went to lots of different doctors and psychiatrists and psychologists, and I was prescribed different medications and told to do different things. But there was a deep feeling inside of me that I had to find the answer out for myself.
Mm.
Like that was the big knowing that I had in my body.
Mm.
And yeah, I was on medication for a little while, and that didn't go well. I ended up developing an addiction to some of the medications and
Wow.
was pretty sick.
The anti-anxiety ones.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
and then sleep medication and a whole host of
wow.
things. But by a strange, somewhat serendipitous set of circumstances, I found my way in a Buddhist meditation studio. The teacher was teaching a mixture of meditation and very gentle yoga movements.
Mm.
And it was the first time I felt myself firstly drop into my body and not feel like I was just existing up in the mind. But it was also what he was saying in that class. And some of the things he was saying was, you are not your suffering, you are not your thoughts. And I had moments throughout that class where I was witnessing my thoughts and witnessing the stories I was telling myself about, what I was going through at that point. And there was a sense of separation between me and that that which I was observing. And so that got me really curious. And I came back the next day and the next day and ended up studying with him for, I think, 5 or 8 years. Every single day I was with him at his house. And then I eventually, after about 2 years, went back to work. But at that point, 2 weeks into my new job, it just didn't feel like I was aligned to this career anymore.
Hmm.
And
What did
yeah,
that
at this
feel
point,
like? Can you explain that? Because I think actually a ton of people, like when you say like I felt like I was like, what did it feel like? What does that mean?
I mean, it probably manifests for people in very different ways. But for me, it just felt like I was just completely in the wrong place, and it felt really tight in my body. So my chest felt constricted. Like, I mean, this sounds very esoteric, but my heart, it felt very trapped. It felt like, oh, I can't really say or do or express myself. Like I'm here, but I'm not really here.
Well, and you'd
And
also been in that yoga studio in that really expressive place for so long. So I can
correct,
understand how like constricting that would feel. But I don't think
absolutely.
people do anything about that, which is going to be a fascinating part of the story.
Well, I mean, I understand why, because it's not an easy road to really listen to our body and to listen to our heart. And it's not as, it might sound romantic as I'm saying all of this, but I went through many, many years, and specifically the first 2 years when, I started teaching after, my teacher had asked me to teach, and I started teaching, and I was making $35,000 a year, which was
Yeah.
so hard to support myself, let
How
alone,
did you
my,
support
my
yourself?
daughter.
Like, and a
I
daughter?
don't know. I really, yeah, yeah. I have a daughter. My daughter was very young at that point, but I remember I was living at home with my parents. I was just traveling between studio to studio. Um, I can't really explain how I got through it, but what I do remember is just feeling so happy in that
Mm.
process. I was a better father because I was more present to my daughter. I was a better son. I was a better friend. I was taking better care of my mind and my body. And I realized something really interesting, which was when I was working in the advertising world, I always felt like I didn't have enough. I need to make more money. I need to buy more things. And a large reason for that was because I was very unhappy. And so I would try to fill that void with external things, be it clothes or be it something else. It was just a lot
Right.
of, sorry, my incense is going off next to
You
me.
know how that
Um,
happens. Occupational hazard.
I sound like such a meditation teacher right
I
now.
love it. Oh, this is the whole story. I mean, this is the whole story. So when you had a ton of money, there wasn't enough money in order to
Right.
fill this hole inside of you, and there wasn't enough restaurants, and there wasn't enough trips, and there wasn't enough clothes, and there wasn't enough, and you're trying to fill it with these external means, and you're making $35,000 a year, feeling as whole and complete as you'd ever felt.
Yeah. Yeah. It was a very
That's the whole
strange
story. We could end
paradox.
here, but I don't
Exactly.
want to because I
Exactly
have a
right.
hundred questions, but we could
No,
end
but
here.
it's a big part of the story because you realize you have moments in life where you realize that, oh, you actually don't need as much as you thought you needed. And
God, it's hard to realize that in our culture right now, isn't it?
absolutely, absolutely, because we're fed and we're sold something else. The whole structure of capitalism operates under the fact that we're not enough,
Sure. So does
and
addiction
there's
while we're
something that,
up. Hmm.
yeah, yeah, and it's this belief that we're well, fitness and wellness culture has also played into it, in which we've been told that we need to constantly be improving, and
Uh,
we are not whole and complete if we don't, eat something or drink a particular drink or wear a particular clothes. But a lot of meditation practice is about recognizing and unlearning that, and just appreciating the innate goodness that we have, and this innate sense of wholeness that has always been there, no matter what we have done or what we've achieved or what we've acquired. So anyway, to cut a very long story short,
Oh no, I want a
I
long
ended up
story long.
teaching.
I'm obsessed because I have so many micro questions about this because listen, I'm with you. Like, deep down inside of every single one of us is a profound wisdom that knows exactly what to do
Mhm.
and knows that and can take that incredibly brave risk to move from being an advertising high stress, not enough culture to becoming a $35,000 a year Buddhist meditation teacher. I'm so curious how you were able to take that brave leap. Like where was that moment where you said, I'm not going back. I'm just going to do this and everybody will be, I will trust the process to say like it will work out as it needs to.
Yeah, it was the fact that it was out of fear. Actually, it was the first step for me. I was scared of going back into an environment in which I got very sick,
Mm,
and I that was the impetus for me because I didn't listen to that voice for a long time.
yeah.
For about 5 years, I kept on feeling like, oh, like I'm not feeling well. I'm feeling this career is maybe not it for me. Like all these different thoughts and sensations were communicating to me, but I wasn't listening to it. And so the panic attack was almost like a final, like, hey, wake the f up, you know.
Right. Like, I'm going to
Uh,
kill you if you don't listen.
yeah, it was like that.
Yeah.
So there was an element of fear about going back into it, but then there was also this feeling that I had, maybe it was intuition, maybe it was something else, where I felt that the message of Buddhism and mindfulness, which I was exposed to, and most of my training was being delivered by a very particular kind of person at that point.
Mm,
They tended to be in their 60s or 70s. They tended to generally be a white person. They tended to speak in a language that was not very accessible to the youth, that wasn't very accessible to people like me and my friends. It didn't really speak to the times. It
yeah.
sounded like it was a very distant, ancient teaching that, um, I was like, oh, I wish someone would just tell me how to date in a ethical, mindful way,
Mm,
or talk to me about, money in a way that doesn't feel like money's bad, because, money isn't bad. Like, we have to have money to live, but how we relate to that money and the
yeah.
attachments that we
Energy.
have
Yeah.
to it, all of that. So I had an intuition. I'm like, oh, well, it would be really amazing if there was someone that could do that. And then I'm like, well, hang on, why can't I be that person? And I never wanted to be a teacher. Honestly, it wasn't as cool as maybe it is these days. 16 years ago, it was weird back then, especially if you were a meditation teacher. But my teacher asked me to teach one day, and then I ended up doing a teacher training a few years after that with a girlfriend, and that studio asked me to teach, and that really became the start of my career. And I think along the way, there's been a message that I've shared that perhaps people have resonated with, and that's probably why I'm still here.
Yeah. I actually also think it's super interesting, at least what I know about meditation and is that you were able to make that really brave step to not go back into advertising and take this leap after you had done a ton of practice, right? You've been practicing so it isn't like you quit the job, like you were like, oh, you know what, this panic attack. It's like, how many months were there that you were in, profoundly deep mindfulness and meditation practice? It's like you really
Mm,
were less scared of what you're saying, right? Like you're not your suffering, you're not your money. And I would love for you to untangle, though everybody can come to go to your YouTube channel and can certainly get on this amazing app that you've made and go to your studios, which we can talk about too. But I think that's a huge part of it. Like I just know I've been meditating a long time and I couldn't hear a thing. And now I can really hunker down when there's something that my spirit needs me to know. I can hear it usually.
yeah, that's a really great point. It's part of the practice is awareness. Okay, what is communicating, and the other part, which is probably the harder part, is to trust what you're hearing, and to use a sense of discernment, because
Right.
a lot of the messages that we think come from our body come from culture. They come from our environment. They come from
Yeah.
what people have told us they expect of us. So to move through that and to cultivate that discernment, which you're talking about, is really important.
Well, this other thing you're saying too, which is I think fitness culture and wellness culture, it actually survives off of us not being enough. But I actually think there's a space with even spiritual culture. I want my friend who's also a Buddhist meditation teacher, oddly, she one day said to me, "You got to stop going to all these healers because you're enough. Like, stop it.
Mm.
Like, you're actually getting
Yeah.
sick off of go to this place and go to this ashram." And I was like, "You're so right." Like, I was even getting addicted to healing in its own way, right? She's like, "Stop. It's all there.
Yeah.
Enough. Sit
That's
quietly. That's
brilliant
there's your
advice.
prescription."
Yeah. No, that really is brilliant advice. And I think that's motivated by the sense that we can't really accept that this moment, like we are enough, that we are enough, not that it's enough, and that we are good. And you know, we have an obsession in wellness culture around being happy and positive all the time. And
Optimal, right? All that
right, yeah, like biohack our way to all of this. And
biohacking, I think it's its own
um,
addiction, right? Like biohacking is inherently saying you're not enough, you can do better, do better, do better, eat less. It's like so overwhelming. I mean, just for my nervous system, not forget my
yeah,
soul.
absolutely, it is. And also, it's the reality that we don't need to be happy all of the time.
Oh,
And
yeah.
our lives, we're not designed that way to be happy every single moment of our life. Like negative things happen, shit things happen in our life, things go bad, things don't go our way. And it's okay to be sad, and it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to be mad, and to create more of a holistic understanding of our emotional landscape and to be
Mm.
embracing of all of those sides of us is really the power in developing a practice that embraces our whole humanity, and not just the part of us that we love, that is happy and presentable and
Yeah.
nice all the time, but the part of us that it's ugly. And we start to recognize that all of it is great. It's all part of us, and that's
Well,
okay.
and arguably, right? Like, I don't know, it's my opinion of how the training. I mean, arguably, I think more important that we learn to embrace the less happy. I know for me, when I first started meditation, I did transcendental, and I would sit there. It'd be the most violent 20 minutes of my life. I could not wait for that bell to ring. And then one day it was like, it just was. It's exactly, I want you to explain what I
Mm,
mean by that, because that's just my experience of it. And then, because one day it was like, it wasn't this big, ugly violence anymore. It was just like, oh, here we are. And then it just stopped being a thing.
yeah.
And then it just was like, then I would just sit. And it was so hard. I understand, because there is there's a lot of presumptions people have about sitting quietly, that it's supposed to be this like levitating, amazing experience. And I don't think that's the point. But can you help us understand all of that?
Yeah, I mean, the main thing the main thing I tell my students is that meditation isn't about feeling good. It's about being free. And there's a big difference between the two, because there are a lot of things that we can do to feel good. We can go have a bubble bath, we can go see our friends, we can go watch a movie, we can go buy new clothes, all those things, and they'll make us feel good, but it won't make us feel free. And the freedom, and the true freedom that meditation and some sort of spiritual practice really gives us, is our capacity to see things as they are, and to be less reactive of those things, and to be less clingy, and to be less craving of those things. So when we see reality as reality, one of the things that we begin to see is that everything changes. That's
Mhm.
like a very obvious thing. And if we can develop a practice within ourselves that reminds us that, okay, everything does change, and this is human, it's normal, it's part of our life, then perhaps we'll cling to those things less.
Mm,
We'll desire for them not to change a little less. And an
mm.
example of this is our bodies change over time.
Yeah.
um, I'm looking at my body these days, I'm like, wow, like the things I used to be able to do with it like 10 years ago, I actually can't do it now. But for many of us, we cling to who we were back then, right? So we might change our bodies in drastic ways, or we might go on extreme diets, or we might do all these different things. And there's nothing wrong with that at all, by the way. But it's also kind of accepting that this is something that's happening. Like, I'm getting older, I'm able to do things a little less the way I used to be. And that just creates a little less mental tension within me, this desire that, oh, I don't want it to change. I can just be with how it is right now. And the same thing goes for relationships. We want our partners to be who they were when we first met them. And that's not true, because they change and they evolve as well, just like we do.
Mhm.
So recognizing this is part of our life enables us to flow with it a little bit better, with less tension, with less constriction,
What's
with
your take
money, all
on,
those
because
sorts
the
of
thing I
things.
think people who I know and who listen to my community here, I think the biggest thing that people struggle with, and this is, I think, what you're saying too, I hope, in my little session with you, which I'm so loving, is like perfectionism. Because to me, perfectionism is this really two-dimensional like it's such a fake concept. And I wonder, because I think that's what everybody's seeking. I just need 5 more pounds. I just need, and what you're saying, like, I just need a 10,000 more dollars and then it will be perfect. And if you're like, if this Buddhist belief of like, well, everything's going to change anyway, God, that's such a more comfortable space to live than like, oh, I need to be this weight. I need it to look this way. I need my body to be this way. I need, what's your take on all that perfectionism stuff?
Well, I think one thing you said is to recognize that our happiness ultimately can't be in something outside of us,
Say
right?
that
Like
again for the back row.
where
Mhm.
I think if we think that, okay, once I get to this point, or once I get the relationship or the partner that I want, or once I get the job I want, then I'll be happy. Then um, that's just creating a lot of expectation and attachment to something in the future,
Can
and
you
then
unpack
that
that for us though? Because I think there's people listening who are 300 pounds who are saying, no, but like when I lose 100 pounds, I will be happier. I think there's truth to that. But what are you actually like? Can you help us through that?
yeah, I think, I mean, there's a lot to unpack in what you just said as well, but what I'm saying is we shouldn't have motivation. We shouldn't lose a desire to transform, or to have, a different body, or to have a partner in the world. Like, we should be motivated to chase those things. But we should also recognize that those things ultimately aren't going to make us happy. It's
Mm.
something in the process that we develop. So if it's losing the weight, it's this relationship we start to develop with our health. Like that is what we fall in love with. Like that
That's
is what we begin
beautiful.
to
That makes me want to
appreciate.
weep. That's so beautiful. That's really what's
Right.
true. Well, it's like that the act of esteem is of taking care of yourself in a different way is the internal work.
Right.
The
Exactly.
outcome happens to be that your body looks different, but the process, that's why crash diets and fad diets are so harming to us. It's
And
the
they're not
process that you're
sustainable,
doing
right?
to yourself, right?
Exactly, exactly. And relationships, I used to have this belief that, once I find a partner, once I have a girlfriend or a wife, then I'll be happy. Up
Yeah.
until then, like, there's an emptiness inside of me. And we know this, like, once we do meet someone, we bring that void within us into that relationship.
Yeah.
And so ultimately it's not that relationship that's going to make me happy. There's something that I have to work on internally, to be present enough, to be whole and complete enough to really savor and appreciate that. And then the happiness isn't because of that person, it's because of a multitude of things. It's because you are whole and complete, and at that time you're able to receive the love of someone else. And
Mm.
who knows, you could have met a bunch of people along the way, but you just weren't able to be right for them. You weren't able to be present for them. You weren't able to meet them with that level of understanding or awareness.
I love that. I love that. Can you talk about this moment that you had in your class and you said, I'm not my suffering and I'm not my thoughts. Like, can you break that down a little bit to first grade for me? It's very
Yeah.
12th grade, it's really
No.
graduate.
Well, when we talk about our thoughts, or I'll speak for myself firstly, and then maybe this is more general to everyone. When something pops into my head, there was a period of time where I was like, oh, yes, I should act on that.
Yeah, like I'm
So,
terrible. I'm terrible. Okay, let me
yeah,
go do terrible things to myself now, right?
absolutely. Or, like, go and get a tub of ice cream and eat
Yeah,
it at the one time. And
preach.
so uh, we tend to attach these thoughts a narrative that it is me, like I am having these thoughts. And now with meditation practice and in Buddhist practice, we begin to recognize that thoughts are essentially something moving. They're something that manifests within the moment. They don't come from within us. They are just experiences that manifest, and if we're able to simply observe them, they actually go away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we might have a stressful day. We come home, we want to grab a tub of ice cream. But before that, grabbing a tub of ice cream, there is a stimulus. And that stimulus is that I'm stressed. I'm stressed. I need to feel good. And then all of a sudden, this thought arises out of this little interaction of stimulus, which is have a tub of ice cream, that'll make you feel good. But when we practice meditation or we have any type of awareness practice, there's a little space between the stimulus and the response, right? If the response is to grab the ice cream, the stimulus is I'm anxious, I'm stressed. There's a moment of space. Viktor Frankl talks about it a lot in his book, Man's Search for Meaning.
What a great, I mean, highly recommend, especially in these times right now. What a great, important book to read.
Absolutely. And that space is pretty mindfulness. That space is that moment where we can observe, oh, okay, is this tub of ice cream going to make me happy? Is it going to make me feel like shit as soon as I finish it? And then you have what we call a choice. You can choose to eat that ice cream. Sure, go ahead, do it. But you can also choose something different. And we all have this choice. But for many of us, we are operating in such speedy energy, my teacher calls it, that we feel like we don't have a choice. We don't have the ability to choose how we respond moment to moment. And so when I say we are not our thoughts, like we can be the observer of thoughts. They don't have to be, these are my thoughts. I can be the observer of thoughts that arise in my experience. Just like I can watch the sky and I can notice a cloud moving through or an airplane flying by or a couple
You're
of
not
birds.
personalizing the airplane, right? Being like, well, the
Yeah,
airplane's flying close because I'm really fat.
correct,
Like
correct, correct, exactly. And this takes work, right? It might
it
sound
takes
easy, but
practice. Yeah,
it
it takes a
takes
lot of
a lot
practice.
of practice. And these are habitual patterns that have been stored in our psyche, in our psychology since our birth, because of our
Some
conditioning
might
from
argue
our
before.
family
I'm
structures.
obsessed with generational trauma. Some might say before that even, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And so, like, that's one way of not depersonalizing our thoughts. And when I talk about suffering, suffering is anything from I feel stress to I'm going through something traumatic to I'm sitting in this chair right now. And in 5 minutes, I'm probably going to be sore and I'm going to want to move. Right. So there's an element of unsatisfactoriness is another way of saying suffering, or imperfection is another way of saying it.
It's like
And
not enough
so
in a way of saying it.
not enoughness is also a good one. Yeah. Like this moment right now is for whatever not enough. Right.
This is a
That's what
mind-blowing moment for me. That my
I'm
not
glad.
enoughness is causing me suffering. I'm really having yeah. So
I mean, that's one strand. I think what I'm referring to mainly is suffering in general,
right.
right? And so suffering in general are all these different things that we've discussed, but not personalizing it means that if I'm going through anxiety, it's recognizing that it's not personal. It's not because of me. It's because I'm human, right? And we live in anxious times, first of all, and some of our nervous systems can't respond to the way that society is asking us to respond to. And it's not because of me. There's not something wrong with me. It's like this is just what I'm experiencing now in this moment of time. And if we know that what I'm experiencing now in this moment of time will change, we can respond to that very differently. We can recognize that, oh, okay, like I can befriend this really shitty feeling right now. I don't have to reject myself. I don't have to judge myself. I don't have to create labels and narratives and stories around who I am. I can see it as something that is being experienced momentarily. I can create a sense of ease and compassion for it. And I can observe it, tend to it, look after it until it goes away. And everything has the nature to go away. So we have to, first of all, believe that because everything does change. Nature changes.
Is there a quickish, and there you might be like, go to this part of my YouTube channel, which is a great answer. Is there a quickish way to explain how to befriend a feeling or an idea that you feel is violent or will not stop or is a part of you? Because I think that's the thing. Like I always bring like my 350 pounds, my 325 pound like angry self. And she's like, what are you talking about? Be friend like that? No, I can't do that. Maybe for you, not for me. That's my stuff. Like, can you explain that or just guide us somewhere that we could learn more about that? How do I befriend
Yeah.
these suffering thoughts?
Befriend it can sound like it's a very lofty goal. It can sound very distant, but a way to look at it is that feelings, let's talk about feelings for a moment.
Love it.
Feelings begin to manifest first in the body,
Mm.
and then we interpret that, right? So, uh, fear or anxiety, as an example, you'll feel it first before you think it. Like you might start to feel your hands start to tremor. You might start to feel your heart start to race. You might feel your blood start to thicken around your digestion. And then there's the thought that, this is scary. This is really scary, right? Befriending our experience is simply, first of all, recognizing I'm having this physical experience and it's okay. That's step one. Like it's okay
I
for
love
me to
that.
feel
And
what I'm
it's
feeling.
okay. That's validation. That's
It's
saying,
okay.
yeah, that's the most truth
Yeah.
telling thing you can say to yourself. It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay for me to feel this is the first thing that I would say. And then we bring, a sense of loving awareness, as Ram Dass used to call it,
Yeah.
to what we're feeling. It's okay, let me observe it without getting the mind involved in it. And so what that means is, okay, bringing the attention to my hands start to clam up. Okay, cool. Like I feel the hands climbing up. I feel my heart beating. And I can just be with the feeling of the heart just going like that.
Mm.
Where we tend to fall over in this part of the practice is we tell ourselves, okay, this is it. I'm having a panic attack. Holy shit. Like I'm not going to get out of this. This is
Holy shit.
me. Yeah, this is me. I'm so bad. I need to get help. I
What's
need to
wrong
do all
with
this.
me?
And
Why can't I just get it together? Yeah.
right, right, right. And so that's when we fall out of the experience. But the invitation is just to come back to be with the experience with loving awareness. So just feel the
God, isn't that
feelings and
what we
drop the
all need?
story.
I mean, that's just literally what I need anytime I'm suffering. I need like my own self-love. I need myself. I'm the best. I
Right.
can show up for, I am. I'm the best to show up for others. Like imagine me showing up for myself in those harder moments.
Absolutely. Yeah. Pema Chodron, the great
I mean, who
author and
doesn't? I
spiritual
mean,
teacher,
may we take a moment? She's the best.
she's the best. She would say that feel the feelings, but drop the story.
Mm.
And that's really what we're talking about in this part of the experience as well.
The thing that she said that changed my entire experience of being a human is when she offered the idea that I would soften. I would just soften when I was feeling because I was just so hard and I would get hardened up
Mm,
and scared and just completely couldn't move and just what would be like, especially in interpersonal relationships, get angry, want to cut and run, dieting, you name it. And she just offered me the idea that I would soften. And then I was just crying all the time.
and how did you soften?
I saw when I softened, I think my heart was the best part of me, which is my heart, was able to start to do the work instead of like this fear and trying to control everything. I just was and I in all of these experiences I've had personally, when I've gone through harder times, it's just made me a much more compassionate person to myself and then to others. And that kind of ebb and flow of all of it, it's pretty incredible. But you can't do it when
Yeah.
I used to have just like a big arm around outside of me, and because I was so
Yeah.
scared of life. So
Yeah. Yeah. And that is the perfect invitation, is to develop an intimacy with what you are defending yourself against. Right.
oof, that's a heck of an invitation.
Yeah.
Yes, no, maybe. I'm not sure which box. But I
Yeah,
love
I mean,
that,
I don't
right?
think we're taught to develop that sense of courage and fearlessness and vulnerability, which is what it's being asking you to do.
I don't even think I was just in a group today when we were talking about feelings, and one of the women's like, I just don't understand why I can't identify my feelings. And I said, well, did your parents teach you? No. Did your fifth grade teacher teach you? No. Did your seventh grade soccer coach teach you? No. Like, okay. you're late to the
Yeah.
game, but you're in the game. Let's go. Right.
Yeah, yeah. I wish we learned emotional literacy from a young age. That would be
My 6-year-old godson, I think, has
very
a really
good.
good school. He did. I said, "Are you angry that I'm leaving?" He said, "I'm furious that you're leaving. I'm furious." And I said, "Okay, well, you think you're also sad that I'm leaving?" He goes, "I'm furious sad that you're leaving." And I was like, "Yeah,
I
aren't you?"
love that.
Talk us through all the ways. So I really want to hear. I mean, I got a little access to this app. It's delightful. I had access to your YouTube channel, which we all have, which is delightful. I didn't get a book, but I'm here for that. Can you just talk about what you're up to right now so we can all, and if we're in LA, we can know you better too?
Yeah, so in 2020, me and two others co-founded an app called Open. Open, the vision was never to actually start with an app. It was to develop this hybrid method of delivering mindfulness, or what we call presence and connection, to people all around the world. And so initially, we wanted to launch a bunch of studios. The first one being in San Francisco and then LA. But then COVID happened. And so we had to really change the whole direction of our company to developing an online platform. And that eventually became the app that we have today. And the app itself has a methodology of hybrid mindfulness, or somatic mindfulness, as I like to call it, in which we explore breath work, movement, and meditation. Sometimes all of these things in the one class, combined with this sense of wisdom. So daily wisdom. Uh, we have incredible yoga teachers, which we've sourced from all around the world, incredible meditation and breathwork teachers. And we've launched a studio. Our first fully fledged studio launches next month in Venice. But a year ago, we started doing a pop-up in Venice, LA, and then all around the US. We'd travel and do little experiences. And so that's been going great. The foundation of our app is based on integrating music and mindfulness together. So yeah, if anyone's listening and you want to check it out, check it out. It's called Open.
If we're like sitting here and we don't have, or just like, what would you say the easiest first step would be if we're just like, if people are really hearing what we're saying and they want to just take one step in, what would you say would be the easiest way to go about? I don't know if it's your YouTube, I don't know what it is, or just sitting quietly for a minute. What would you say is the easiest way to step in?
Well, I mean, we spoke about this at the start, but like the first thing to do would be just to listen to the body. And, I like to sometimes just close my eyes, put my hand on my chest, and just like notice what it's telling me. And a meditation that I do often, it's called a contemplation practice, is just to ask a question and notice what arises. And in the meditation, sometimes I'm like, what is it that I need? And listeners may just want to do that too. Is like, what is it that I need? And sometimes the answer might be rest.
And you just
Sometimes the
listen,
answer
you put
might
your
be,
hand on your heart, you ask yourself that question, and then you just spend like 2 or 3 minutes listening to what comes up.
yeah, listening and not judging or trying to work out how, oh, this is true or not true, but just listening. And it sounds easy to do it, and sometimes it is, but because so many of us have really busy minds, it's hard to find a sense of clarity in our answer.
To
So
discern. But I guess if you do it
discern,
after a
yeah.
while, you'll hear what is noise and what is news, right?
Exactly. And then, a good first step is to think big, but start small. Thinking big might be, I want to meditate for my family because I want to be a better mom, dad, son, whatever. And then starting small is committing to like 5 to 10 minutes of meditation every day. And, I'm a parent. I know it's not always easy to find time to do it, but I think 5 or 10 minutes every day we all have at some point, whether
Everybody
we have
finds
to.
about 20 minutes for Instagram, myself included. So
Exactly,
I don't think
exactly.
finding 5 minutes is hard. I think.
So exactly. So a good first step is making that commitment to yourself that, for my well-being and for the well-being of my family and friends and community, I'm going to commit 5 to 10 minutes a day. And then on the app, for example, there's a daily meditation. So it takes any guesswork out of what should I do today, or what do I need, and it just gives you a daily practice which integrates like a wisdom component to it, and then like a meditation and breath
How
work.
long does it take?
But 10 minutes.
Okay, that's good. That's
Yeah.
like good sales. All right. So that would be
Yeah.
like half your Instagram time devoted to getting to know yourself better.
I mean, I spend way more time on Instagram than 10, 20 minutes,
I
but
mean, me too. Let's be okay,
yeah,
fine. We're being
let's be honest. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, just think big, start small
I'm
is
so
my
glad you
invitation.
spend a lot of time on Instagram. That really decreases my level of shame.
Absolutely. I'm very human.
I think that is good for your sales, right? You're like a very relatable guy. Okay, I have one more question. What do you think we're really craving? No big deal.
As in humanity, what we're craving.
Well, I don't know. Take it any way you want it.
I think, my sense of it based on all the people that I tend to teach and see in classes is we want a sense of connection. And that connection can be connection to ourself, connection to a community, or connection to a sense of meaning or purpose. And life can sometimes feel like a rat race. We're on a treadmill that doesn't end. And so it takes a very bold, brave decision to really listen to that voice that is yearning for connection and to go and take that step towards it.
Yeah.
And meditation is one way, but there are so many different ways that we can do it. But I think that is what we are all craving for, is a sense of connection.
Yeah, I do too. It's like a knowing ourselves, which is exactly what we're talking about. So we're so detached from what is true. I think the story about you, I think that story about listening and acting on what your wisdom was saying is so powerful. And I'm so grateful to have heard it today. I really am grateful to know
Thank you,
you,
Molly.
and all of your line items are in the show notes. And can we come visit you on Instagram?
Please,
Where
please
would
come
we
visit
find
me.
it? Such a thing.
It's just my name, Manoj, Manoj, Diaz, Dias.
Yeah, that's great. I don't even follow you. And now I'm going to go on Instagram, but only quickly, just to follow you quickly. Thank
No,
you
no
so
shame or
much.
judgment.
I feel so different. It is true. You instantly help us feel safe and calm. So I'm so glad you're doing the work that you're doing. And thanks for visiting with us today.
Thank you, Molly. Appreciate that.